super glad to have you guys all with us. I apologize. I made it late today. Can't blame Biz. But we're going to jump right into this because I really want to get all the time we can get with my good friend here. You guys, welcome my good friend Jason Redman to the show. What's up, brother?
What's up, everybody? How we doing tonight? Garrett, good to see you. Thank you for dinner.
Yeah,
it was absolutely my fault because I was so slow eating all that amazing food.
Yeah, well, my wife wasn't helping, like pawning hers off on you either.
That's so, okay. I mean, you know what? Your wife was amazing. So the whole dinner was great.
Yeah, well, glad to have you here, man. Really appreciate you coming and sitting down with us, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while. So, for those of you that do not know who Jason Redman is, and I guess you live under a rock, because I can't imagine anybody that doesn't know who he is, but I mean, I guess there are those people out there. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your background and what Jason Redman's all about? Where you're from? What you did?
Yeah, I am a retired Navy SEAL. I did 21 years with the SEAL teams. I did 11 years as an enlisted SEAL, 10 years SEAL officer. I served both pre 9/11, post 9/11, counter drug operations in Central and South America. Worked as a SEAL instructor, training SEALs, not BUD students. There's a distinction there. Before I got picked up for a commissioning program, came back as an officer in 2004, served in both Afghanistan and Iraq, made some mistakes as a young leader, had to grow up, and which is a large part of my story, figured things out, became a better leader. Before I was severely wounded on a mission in Iraq in 2007. Endured some time getting put back together, but still wanted to stay. I'd hoped to stay operational, and then pretty much finished my career over the next 6 years before I retired from the Navy in 2013. Worked with the Navy and the SEAL teams to release a book about my leadership failures and growing up and what it is to be a leader, called The Trident. The Trident went on to be a New York Times bestseller. And most people, when they read that book, I love the reply when they reach out to me and say, wow, that was not what I expected, which is fantastic. I love hearing that. 7 years later, I wrote Overcome because so many people who had read Trident said, how did you do that? How did you do everything you did? Yeah. How did you overcome the failure, the setbacks, the problems, the adversity, the wounds? So we wrote, it took a while really to unfold all and unpack all that. So we wrote Overcome. Overcome came out in 2019. Today, I am a speaker. I am a coach. I am an entrepreneur.
Damn good one, if I might say.
Thank you, sir. I am an entrepreneur. And obviously a father and a husband, and just trying to help people be better versions of themselves and how to deal with all the adversity and life ambushes that every single person will encounter in this life.
That's awesome, man. Well, I want to thank you. I mean, I can't thank you enough for doing this. Like, I obviously love reading about the SEAL stuff. My grandfather was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for a very short period of time. We will not get into that tonight because that is way too long of a story. But, you know, I start off the Trident. Like, I've read all these books and, you know, like I'm fascinated with a lot of that. And yeah, the Trident was literally the first one that I was like, wow, it's got the like SEAL badassery to it. But like, there's so much more to unpack in this. Like, you unpack stuff constantly that it's, I feel like that's one of the few books, and trust me, I've read damn near all of them I can get my hands on, that doesn't just, it's not just about SEAL life and all the badassery. It's about the life lessons and like the things you're coaching on and doing now. So what drove you to write The Trident and Overcome? All SEAL community stigmas aside, because that's a big thing in y'all's community. Like, no one really wants the shit being put out there, and writing a book is kind of like,
it's a double-edged sword.
So like, when you were doing that and decided to do this, what made you do that, and what did you hope these books would do, and how they would impact the readers?
So first off, I never thought I was going to write books. It was never an intention. I sure as hell never came into the SEAL teams thinking, well, someday I'll write a book. The Trident in some ways wrote itself initially. When I was injured, I couldn't talk. I was trached for 7 months, and I had to write to communicate. I've always liked to write, and what would happen is, obviously in the beginning, guys would come visit, and team guys and warriors, when someone gets all shot up or people get killed, we want to know what happened. We want to know the story. We want to know how it unfolded. We want to know it just because we're warriors, and also we want to know it because what are the lessons learned to hopefully prevent that from happening to us or our friends in the future. So that was kind of everybody would come to the hospital like, what happened? So that started the first thing. And because I couldn't talk, I could only write. Debriefing everybody. And obviously it would be snippets until finally after a few days, I wrote the whole thing out, pages and pages of here's what happened from start to finish from my memory, which I thought my memory was pretty solid. I was like, oh yeah, I got the lock on this. Like I know this. But interestingly enough, when my buddies got home a few weeks later and came to visit, there were some holes in my story. I had been unconscious. I had told the doctors I never lost consciousness, but I had literally drifted in and out of consciousness from the initial shooting all the way up until, the medevac flight out. So they filled in those holes. But then from there, I started writing about other missions. I started writing about some of the leadership lessons that I had learned in combat. That started to drift into writing about Afghanistan. It took 4 years and 40 surgeries to put me back together. So it started to become something I did after surgery. I mean,
4 years and 40 surgeries. That is insane.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other wounded warriors that are out there that have endured far more than I have. So that sounds like a lot. But there are other guys out there that have had 100. I think the record I've heard, there is a Marine, Jason, I can't think of his last name. I'm sorry, Jason, if you listen to this. He's a high, disarticulate, basically pelvis down, but amazing wounded warrior in California, and he has had over 200 surgeries at this point.
Wow. So, and according to your teammates, they made you prettier. I mean, I didn't know you before this.
I think that's true. I totally looked like Tom Cruise. That's a true. I had like the total Tom Cruise nose. So much so, my wife will bitch about this, that when my first daughter was born in Portsmouth Naval Hospital, nurses were coming into the room and giggling about this guy looks like Tom Cruise. Like we could hear it. And my wife was so angry. Like you can have him, take him, because she's going through labor.
I can't imagine. I mean, knowing Erica the little bit I've known her, I don't want to be around her angry. Like,
oh, she can be mean when she's angry.
I'll bet the long-haired admiral really rips some ass.
Oh man, the girls are the family's on edge when she gets angry. So, but anyways. Yeah, I mean, obviously it reconfigured my face. I have a much smaller nose than what I used to have. So in some ways, friends are right. But it was all that writing that actually came to be the Trident. It had become almost 200 pages. And I wrote a lot about the mistakes I made. And I pulled no punches on the things that I had done wrong and owning those things. And like you said, books were a very double-edged sword. As a matter of fact, I was stationed at the development group at that time, and books were a very double-edged sword. And here I was this guy who had messed up in the SEAL teams at one point years earlier, and I didn't want to be a guy to not support the community and not cast the community in a good light. So I brought what I had written so far to our very respected command master chief, and I said, who was my old master chief when I was at my SEAL team that I was wounded at, SEAL Team 10. And I said, hey, will you look at this and tell me what you think? I have a lot of people saying they think there's something with this. And he read it and he said, hey, I think this is really good. It's humble. He said, it's your story. It's about leadership. He said, let's send it up the chain of command. So we sent it to the commanding officer. He read it, he agreed, and we sent it to the headquarters command of the SEAL teams. They read it, and they said, you're good. You can put this out. So that's how it moved forward. So I never intended it to be a book. I reached out to Marcus Luttrell and said, hey, can you help me? He referred me to his agent, who said, hey, I think you have something here. Which, an interesting fact about the book, which I've kind of mentioned this before, and the agent that we had, Jim Hornfisher, is no longer with us. So God rest his soul. Jim passed away from brain cancer a couple of years ago. But Jim helped me get Trident published. And I tell you, it's very difficult to get a book published by a big publishing house. And Jim helped me do that. And for that, I will always be thankful. But I will say Jim did not like the story of the Trident as it was. He disagreed with talking about my mistakes. And he said, look, you saw combat. You should tell more combat stories. You were connected to Operation Red Wings. You should tell more of that. And we really disagreed on that. And here was the fundamental difference. The fundamental difference was I knew I was a guy who had messed up. And we are not a community that tolerates failure very well. We oftentimes hold grudges against guys who have messed up. So I knew that if I wrote a book and I didn't hit it head on right from the get-go, every guy out there would be like, oh yeah, you're that dude that fucked up. And you wrote a book about how great you are. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell the whole story, every bit of it. So one, I know there were a lot of lessons. There were so many lessons that I learned, and I was like, I think there are other people that can learn from these lessons. And two, I knew that it took away any power from anyone who would try and say, yeah, you're that guy that wrote that book and you're a big fuck up. And I'm like, you know what, man? I owned it. I owned the mistakes that I made. I talk about it in that book.
Because you hear a lot of that, like, in the communities. Like, I mean, like, I know Goggins has dealt with that. Like, I mean, just to name one off the top of my head. But, I mean, like, that's one of the things I really personally, I mean, I've read the Trident, I think, 3 times now. I've only read Overcome once. But, like, that is what makes that book so great. Like, I can't believe it was ever a point that was going to get scratched because, I mean, there's books out there if you just want to hear badass SEAL stories and, like, especially like the Vietnam guys and all that stuff. Like, and
there's a lot of great stories.
Yeah.
Not just the SEAL teams. There's a lot of great stories across the military. I mean, in the warrior community, people are fascinated with it. No warrior is perfect. It doesn't exist. We all have flaws. And you know, there's some guys who are far better warriors than I was, but even they had their flaws. And that's the reality. Every one of us is human. People are drawn to the highlights, the heroic moments, the high points, and that's amazing. But at the same time, there's highs and lows for everybody. Our community sometimes can be really toxic, and I hate that. It's a blessing and a curse. I think it's a necessary in a community, in a warrior community where lives depend on. We have to hold each other to the highest standards, and we have to make sure and we apply pressure to bleed out any weakness. And that's necessary. And sometimes for the average person who has never been around that, it's very callous and cold and mean. But it saves lives on the battlefield. Like, hey, there's no room for you to be weak on the battlefield. Like, you have to be strong and violent and dedicated in the moment and 360-degree attention of everything that's going on. The flip side of that is sometimes it bleeds over into everyday life. You know, the world is not so black and white, but sometimes we have guys who are black and white, and they're like, hey, well, you know, you might have been good at this, but, you know, you're bad at that. And we'll literally attack each other outside in public, which I disagree with. I mean, what a shame. We will eat our own. And you watch it happen, unfortunately, all across social media and everything. And I won't do it. I respect all my teammates, everybody that's out there. I wasn't there for many of the things that people talk about. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people who talk about things that they weren't there. It's fascinating to me. It's innuendo, it's hearsay, it's rumor mill, it's you know, hey, this guy said this and this guy said that, but they weren't there in that gunfight or when it happened. And if you weren't, then yeah, man, this is second tier, third tier information that you're basically basing off of. And why? What does it accomplish for us? You're just smearing our own community.
That's sad. That's sad. Well, What do you think's maybe one of the more important life lessons that you learned from your time in the Navy as a SEAL that you believe that everybody could apply in their daily lives?
Life is incredibly hard, and it oftentimes is incredibly unfair. And if you can get past those two things and continue to drive forward and continue to get up every time you're knocked down, and accept the fact that just because you do all the work does not guarantee success, but it does guarantee a much better outcome going after it than just sitting back and saying, well, that's not fair, or this isn't going to happen, or whatever, buying into the victim mindset that so many of the people in this country buy into. It will open the world to you that will enable a much greater perspective to accomplish almost any hope or dream you have. It doesn't guarantee it, but I tell you what, it will give you the drive to believe in yourself, to go after what you want, and accept that you'll get off course, you'll get knocked down. Sometimes you'll do everything right and you still won't get what you technically earned. But that's just life. And that's one of the biggest things I think I learned in my career. Like, and it's probably the base primordial lesson they teach you in buds. Like, hey, we're going to tell you how to do it all right. And then we're going to break it off in your ass for doing it all right, exactly how we told you to do it. And then we're going to fail you for doing it right and tell you how fucked up you are the whole time while you're doing it. And guys who can't figure that out are the guys that quit. They're like, well, that's not fair. You just told me to do it this way, and I'm doing it this way, and you're beating me now and being mean to me. And yeah, welcome to the real world.
Yeah, no participation trophy in buds.
No.
What do you think was one of the toughest decisions you had to make as a leader in the field, and how did you handle the pressure of making that decision?
I don't want to say, thankfully I never had to make a decision where I sent guys into a position where they were killed, but I did make a call one night where potentially that could have happened. And thankfully I had my team leader that night was a friend and an experienced SEAL by the name of Mark Weiss. And Mark died in 2017. Just a great guy. But on that night, we got into a big firefight, a very complicated firefight. And we had enemy barricaded on the roof with a machine gun nest. And they had grenades that they continued to drop down on different sides of the building that we're in. We had women and children inside. They were shooting at the other targets where our other guys were engaged. We had another enemy force at another building behind us shooting at us. Several of the grenades had wounded our interpreter and guys in our platoon. So a really complicated scenario that night. And when DJ Shipley was one, DJ was one of our first guys, and then a teammate I will call the Angry Irishman that I called him in our book, because he was short and stocky and Irish and really angry all the time.
He made you guys do Jameson shots when you
man, he was just always pissed off, always. And God love him. I loved him. He was amazing. But he and DJ made the entry onto that rooftop, and immediately they caught the enemy off guard. So thank God they didn't have the machine gun set up when those guys came up the stairwell. And they shot at DJ, and I can't remember if it was an AK or a pistol. But they shot at those guys. They missed him. DJ took a round right in the chest, but body armor and it actually lodged right in the middle of his magazine on his carrier. They shot that guy. They fell down the stair. They fell back down the stairs, and because at that point, then they got behind that machine gun and opened up. And now they definitely own that stairwell. So all this chaos happens between that initial moment and, probably 4 or 5 minutes later. So trying to figure out I'm in charge now. So trying to get a casualty collection point, trying to get a head count, trying to get an airstrike set up, call in a fire mission on the house behind us. We obviously couldn't call it in on the roof because it would have killed us. So figuring out what to do with that. So I turned to my team leader at one point and I said, you guys got to get up on that roof and take out that machine gun. Like, you guys are going to have to make entry and do it. And it was a bad call. And in the moment, it seemed like, hey, this is what we have to do. And thankfully, Mark was smart enough. He said, Brett, bro, like, that's a suicide mission. Like, no.
We can't do this.
Right. And he was right. I took a second, I took a breath, and he was like, all right. So at that point, we changed the plan. We ended up moving everybody out and doing fire maneuver movements to move away from the house to another house with all these women and children are wounded and everything else. But it was a good call. After that, it was a bad call in the moment. But, sometimes, thank God, I had an experienced team leader who was able to say, hey, this is a bad call. Like, if I had had a young team leader, he might have actually just listened to me and said, oh, God, this is going to suck, but okay. And I literally would have sent that machine gun literally had the bead on that stairwell as they came up. They would have been cut in half.
Whoa.
And I would have had to live with that.
Yeah.
My bad call that I would have sent guys to my death. So I'm very fortunate in my career that I never made a call that did that. I will tell you the bad call I made in Afghanistan years earlier. I am very fortunate that no one was injured or killed from that bad call.
Yeah, it only cost you a few nights on the mountainside.
Yeah. And my reputation.
Oh, that's brutal. Well, man, I know we're just coming off Memorial Day, and you just had an amazing post. I tried to share it, but I guess it was going so viral, like I couldn't even share it off your damn page. I was trying to tag it in my timeline, or maybe I just didn't know what the hell I was doing and trying to do that. But coming off of that, and I know one of your tattoos on your arm, you've got for all your fallen brothers. And what do you think in light of that? Like, yeah, so badass. Love that. What do you think they would want us to remember as a lesson you got from them, or that maybe that they would have wanted to share that you take with you in your daily life? I mean, any of them. Like, I mean, I'm sure there had to be multiple, but like, is there one that stands out that you're just like, man, this happened with so-and-so, and like, still to this day, man, this lesson, I think about this all the time.
I don't think it's any one lesson. I think what I try and tell people, I frequently speak on this, there are a lot of people who, I still have people messaging me right now. That post continues to grow. I mean, it peaked at 7.5 million views. But there are some veterans that take the opinion that on Memorial Day, and let me back up. Memorial Day was originally established and is designed to be a day where we remember the fallen warriors of our country, the individuals who died for our freedom. And it was designed to be a day where people would go and honor them and think about them. And I agree with that. I agree with the sentiment behind it 100%. There are some veterans who feel like it is an offense. It is offensive and to be happy on Memorial Day. And obviously Memorial Day has become, for many Americans, another holiday. It has become, hey, it's a long weekend. I'm going to barbecue. It's the beginning of summer. It's the mark of the beginning of summer.
And party your asses off.
Let's get a long weekend and let's party. And it's become very consumer based. A lot of stores obviously do the big Memorial Day weekend. So there's a group of veterans out there that have become very jaded and very angry and negative about Memorial Day. I am of the mindset that none of my teammates who passed would want people to live in constant sadness for their loss. None of them, I just don't see it. And I wouldn't live this way. I wouldn't think this, that if I had died, I wouldn't want my family or anyone around me to live in this constant grief and sadness. Like, hey, remember me. Like, keep my name alive. Tell
Yeah.
people I was a good guy and that I was, I made an impact, in the period of life that I had. And I went out with a bang, going after and believing in a mission, to fight very bad people, on things, on shores abroad in this case. So I tell people you need to live greatly. And that's this post. That's what I talked about. I said, hey, if you want to have a barbecue and you want to go enjoy yourself and you want to go to Home Depot and buy a grill, man, on sale, go do it. Do it. I asked one thing. I asked that you take a few minutes to remember someone that fell. Recognize why we have this day, why you have the freedom to be able to enjoy this weekend, why you have the freedom to be able to go buy that grill, why you have the freedom to be with your family today. It's because millions of Americans have died since the beginning of our country, not just for our own citizen, but for citizens all over this world. The 80th anniversary of D-Day is happening. Just happened a few days ago, and the very last remaining warriors who fought on D-Day were over there. And I think about that. I think about how many Americans were willing to go fight. I fought because I wanted a better future for my family. I fought, and it drives me crazy. I get all these people who write me on social media. You fought for a lie. You're a puppet. The last war that we actually went for a reason was World War II. Let me tell you something, man. The people I encountered on the battlefield, not all of them, but the 10%, the diehard zealots who bought into every aspect of the Wahhabi sect of Islam, who believed in deep Sharia law, who believed that if you don't believe the way they believe, you are an infidel and you deserve to die as violently as possible. And they would give anything to behead you, rape your family, burn you and your family, burn your family in front of you before they rape them, and then they'd rape you. And they would all justify it in an extreme form of their religion. And if you try and tell me that that's not an affront on our belief system here in America, you're nuts. Because I witnessed it. And that's offensive to me that you would say that to me if you weren't there and saw it firsthand. So coming full circle, man, you got to live greatly.
Yeah, not everybody's been to the Middle East. So,
no, and it's not just, there are other places where we have extremists. There are Christian extremists.
Yeah.
There are, right now, we've got some LGBT extremists. that's the reality. Yeah. I think extremism is dangerous in any form.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the biggest lesson is live greatly. Be thankful for the freedom. If you are listening to this and you live in the United States of America, no matter how messed up you think our country is, we still have freedom and opportunity. You still can go after your hopes and dreams. And no matter what you believe, it was paid for by millions of Americans willing to sacrifice their lives so you could continue to have it.
And you still have the right to say all that bullshit that even you want to put in this man's feet inbox.
And my friends would say,
you want to DM him, but you know what? He's still he fought for you to have that.
And not
right.
just me. More importantly, my friends who are not here, and I would just say they would say to you, enjoy that First Amendment right. You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'm trying not to dig into your book a whole lot. And because I truly think people would gain so much more just reading it, because there's so much packed into there. And we're not going to do a 5-hour Jocko podcast here, so we can't wrap into all of that. But I even think it's so humbling and amazing when you talked about, because I was a kid that wanted to try out for SEALs. I had that vision at one point, and you think about it, and I thought about this when I read the chapter where you were talking about one of your teammates, and you went and asked him, and I don't remember what the question was, but you went and asked him a question, and you were being real serious about and I think it's kind of about the time where they were calling you Rambo Red, or Red Rambo, and they were doing all this stuff, and you were kind of and he told you, I always wondered if you were one of those guys that were just doing it to be the cool guy, or if you were doing this for the real reason and being a leader. And your response to that is you outlined that in the book, and you thought through that, and you kind of laid that out there I don't know if that was like just the self-exploration you did or what, but like watching you go through that and be like, yeah, man, like, I guess so. Kind of like I was the undersized guy. Yeah. I wanted to do the baddest fucking thing I could do. And like, I wanted to serve my country. And yeah, I wanted that fucking Trident. Yeah. Like maybe I did. Maybe there was a part of me that like for a while, but like, then you had all these other experiences and you're like, fuck, I guess for a while I was doing this for all the wrong reasons. Now I have this other understanding and like, yeah, that may have what got me here and helped push me through something as tough as buds. But in the end, I had this other epiphany that like took me to a further place and allowed me to become a leader in the platoon. That's amazing. Like, can you maybe share a little bit more on that? Like,
well, I think any career, any high level career, you take professional athletes, you take, I don't know, give me another example. I mean, I don't know.
High-level entrepreneur.
Yeah, high-level entrepreneur, CEO of Fortune 100 or 500 company. No matter what, there are the real-world implications of that job, the amount of work and grit and the backside talent and dedication that has to go in and achieve it. But there is a small portion of any job, including the SEAL teams, that there's a cool factor to it. And you'd be lying to yourself if that doesn't exist. It exists. I would say there's almost no one, I mean, unless they're just perfect and I don't know, like walked in Jesus' sandals before they came in the SEAL teams, that they didn't at least have some small like, hey, I recognize the impact of being part of this elite fighting unit, the camaraderie, the ability to do these high level strategic impact missions and work with some of the best badass warriors on the planet. Oh, by the way, it's pretty cool too. Yeah. You can't tell me that there's not some part of it that fun set.
Like, yeah.
But that being said, it can't be the thing that drives you when it's time to go into combat and make decisions. And I think that's where it can get dangerous. I have no doubt about it. It is not the movies. It's not
just like Lebanon when Charlie Sheen in them and like trust me with your life, but not your money or your wife.
Well, I don't know. There's probably a lot of truth in that, but no. The thing is, there's no reset button. There's no extra life. You know, you can't go back and start the level over again. When guys get killed, they don't come back. And if you made a bad call as a leader, or if you made a bad call as just a team member, you carry that with you for life. So that's where the cool factor goes away, and you better figure out that guys' lives depend on you. And I think somewhere along the line that got a little blurred for me.
Right.
You know, my son, he saw action. He went in as a diesel mechanic, and when it was time to go, he had to go. And after he got into his first firefight, he called me and said, "You okay, whatever?" Because, you know, I was in the military for 10 years or whatever, and I was chairborne. I didn't have to jump out no planes. I sat my ass in a chair and fixed computers for 8 years. But the one thing he said to me, he said, "Fuck Call of Duty." So why you say that? He said, "This ain't no video game." He says, when you hear a round go by your ear and it sounds like a mosquito at 8,000 miles an hour, and then after about a split second you feel heat, a millimeter to the left, he would be gone. Just like that. So all that comes through your head, and he's just like, everybody goes in thinking it's a video game, it's a movie, it's cool, even when you're training, because you're having the LED, the lights and everything, and it's not real. It's not real until somebody else is literally yards from you trying to take you out. And he just said hearing a bullet go past his head changed his whole outlook on life.
Well, tell your son thanks, and you too. Absolutely.
Chairborne.
Hey, you know what?
But you jump out?
You well know.
I have.
You well know that you don't pick and choose when things are going to happen. There are plenty of guys who thought they'd never see themselves in combat, and they happen to be somewhere that suddenly combat found them.
Yeah.
That's the reality of the military. And I try and tell every young kid, I said, I know that you're going in thinking that you're going to get your degree, and that's great. use it, but you better understand that no matter what, at the end of the day, the military is about fighting wars. And no matter what position you have, whether you're, even if you think you're only administrative or whatever, you never know when you may find yourself in the wrong position. So just be ready for that.
I was in Desert Storm. We were literally sitting in Berlin, and when it came up, AFN said, "Yo, time to go," and we had to get all our gear and everything. We only ended up doing security detail over there, but still, the computers were now done, and you had to go do your job that you actually came in for, and it's just a reality check.
Yep,
a real reality check, but.
And I was going to say, carrying that forward, I think the thing that doesn't prepare you the most, there are two things. Number one, collateral damage you see on the battlefield. You know, so when innocent people are killed, that is a moral injury that many warriors carry. When you go through a target and you just blew something up because you were taking out the enemy, and as you start going through it, you know, the thing is, the enemy doesn't live. It's not like these bad guys live in bad guy camp and it's just a bunch of dudes hanging out together like dreaming bad guy dreams and bad guy plans. It ain't the movies, man. Their families are with them. And it's an unfortunate fact, and I am very fortunate that we almost never killed anybody we did not intend to kill. There are a lot of guys in combat that came into targets after they had taken it down or while they were taking it down, and women and children and people they did not intend to kill were killed. It's an unfortunate, horrible part of warfare. This is why war is so horrible. It's not like, you know, black and white, and especially in this day and age where the enemy doesn't wear uniforms and they want to blend in with the population.
And they're sending them out, the children and women, like, in front of you.
At times they're using them.
I mean, wasn't it the one you just told about when they were hunkered down with the machine gun? There was a ton of women and children there that you guys had to, like, get out before you called it red, even once you, like, found the missing guy that you were needing to account for, correct?
And that's sucks. It sucks. It's hard. It's hard to see them dead. It's hard. I remember taking down targets and coming in, and there would be terrified women and children. You would enter a room and you'd be, you know, drawing down on some male that was in the room who met the description of someone you were looking for, and you had screaming women and children, and you would have to block out of your mind, like, hey, I have daughters this same age. I have a son this same age. How terrified would they be if people broke into our house in the middle of the night and this is what they encountered? And the flip side of that coin, that is definitely not anything video games will ever prepare you for, is the sound of your buddies screaming when they have been wounded and they are bleeding out from gunshot wounds or parts of their bodies are blown out. So that that is the reality. And unfortunately, we need to educate, you know, our young warriors that this is an unfortunate part of war. And we do our best. I would say that the United States government has done a very good job of minimizing the collateral damage. We were very strategic and surgical in the way that we hit targets. It's one of the reasons we use special operations forces versus drones or bombs, because we can go in and we can take down one individual in a room and not take down the other individuals. You know, granted, it's a risk to us. So there's a balance the United States government has to face with that, but it's one of the risks that we accepted, you know, special operations forces accept. So anyways, I think we've gone down a deep rabbit hole.
That's all right. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit because I know you, and I don't want to get you on your joke trail here because, like, we know how good you are at telling, like, really bad dad jokes. But
gotta have humor in this life, man.
Rumor has it that every SEAL has a hidden talent that comes out sometime early on in training. Like, what was yours?
Oh God, what was mine? I don't think.
Because I know a lot of nicknames come from these talents, and they make you do stupid shit depending on what this talent is. I mean, I've heard a lot of these stories, so I mean, I'm sure you had to have one.
I was smart enough.
It definitely wasn't dancing, because I've seen you dance on TikTok.
No, it definitely wasn't. Although, true story, this may be the first podcast we've ever put this out on. So, true story, when I was a kid, I'd go stay with my mom in the Virgin Islands, and every summer she'd come up with extracurricular things for us to do. And I was like, Mom, I want to do this martial arts camp. And no, my mom signed me up for this dance musical camp. And I was in this musical that summer, and I actually earned like one of the lead roles. True story. So I actually have some dance skills when I need to. I just definitely play up the white boy dance moves when I need to.
Tom Cruise risky business moves.
Hey man, I can bring it if I have to. I learned to dance in South America too, man. I can salsa and merengue with some of the best of them.
Well, I mean, I even heard you were on like Hawaii 5-0 at one point, like Mr. Hollywood over here.
That's true. Yeah, I am a card-carrying member of the Screen Actors Guild.
Man.
So
how... I mean, I think that's a good transition here. Like, how important has humor been in your life, especially during the tough times? Like, I know you wrote about some. Like, can you maybe share an instance where humor helped you through a really difficult situation, or 40-something of them? Or
everything in my life, humor has made the difference. I mean, this is a hard career. It's a hard path. To special operations training is hard. Military training is hard. It's designed to be hard. It's designed to be unfair. It's designed to push you to the limits. If all you ever do is focus on the negative aspects of it, you'll almost it's almost impossible to make it through. So that's why the military has so much dark humor. I have horrible dark jokes. I think I got dropped down in Ranger School for telling a joke and forced to do 100 push-ups. I mean, in Ranger School. I'm in Ranger School. I'm with a bunch of warriors, and I told a joke that literally the Ranger, the senior Ranger officer was like, "Just drop down and do 100 push-ups right now." Like, it's a really offensive joke. And
after hearing some of your jokes, I can only imagine how bad this was and what you threw out there.
If my wife's listening right now, she's going, "Please do not tell that joke."
Erica, can we tell it, please? Can we do it, Erica?
It's a horrible joke. It's a horrible joke. It's terrible. So, but someday, if any of you guys meet me in public and you're like, "Please tell the joke," it involves April Fool's Day. Anyways, humor is the key, man. I mean, throughout training, our ability to laugh when things were so hard, I think that is the biggest thing I miss the most. It was the shenanigans, and nothing was off limits. We made fun of everything. America right now has lost its way. We're so overly sensitive to everything. Everybody has to be offended by everything. And don't get me wrong, there's pockets of racism everywhere. In this country, there's pockets, but where I didn't see racism hardly ever was in the military. I didn't see it. Was it there? I'm sure it was there in pockets because I know it exists. What I saw in the SEAL teams, we had black guys and white guys and brown guys and atheists and Christians, and the thing was, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. If you had the ability to do the job, then you were part of the brotherhood. And we would make fun of you for anything and everything about you. Race, creed, color, whatever, man. How big or small your penis was, it didn't matter. We would make fun of it. And all those things were hilarious all the time because we would be doing hard things. You would be freezing. You would be undergoing like 6 days of insanity, and you couldn't even think straight. You were so tired because of lack of sleep or whatever you were doing. And it was the jokes and the fun and the shenanigans and poking fun at people that kept you going. It happened in training. It happened in combat. I carried it forward when I was going through surgeries. It's sad now because we live in a day and age where we're so sensitive. You have to be careful of anything you say because we've been conditioned in these last 4 or 5 years to be offended by anything like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. You're a horrible person." I'm not a horrible person. I'm human. I'm making fun. It doesn't mean I don't like you. That's not the world we're living in right now. And I wish people could lighten up, Francis.
I agree. I mean, we all grew up playing the Dirty Dozens, and I mean, getting hazed a little bit was like a rite of passage. I don't care what sport you played or whatever. That was a rite of passage. And this whole bullying thing, and I mean, I get it. I do think there's a level of certain things that, like, once you cross that, like, yeah, it needs to be addressed with. But, like,
I got bullied some as a kid. I was a scrawny little runt. But it never, in my opinion, it never... They were being assholes. They were being assholes. And it's just, but you know what? It made me better. As a matter of fact, some of that was a fuel that drove me to go become a SEAL. Like, you know, hey man, I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see other people bullied. And B, I want to be a better version of myself that can stand up for myself against things like that. So in some ways, there's bullying that gets toxic. There's bullying that just, I don't even want to call it bullying. It's just, I don't know, friction that occurs in society that, anyways, we need to get back on track and just, you know, hey man, everybody's different. Everybody's unique. Humans at the end of the day, all over the world I've been, at the end of the day, humans want to have a good life, man. They want to have purpose. They want to hopefully live in peace. They want to be able to laugh. They want to be able to enjoy this life we live. Every race, creed, color, gender, religion, everything that I've ever seen is that way. All
right. Can you tell us maybe about how you learned to take criticism and use it to your advantage?
I still suck at it.
Versus letting it get the best of you. Like, but I mean, I think from knowing you and what I've read, like, I think there was some crucial points where, like, you faced from the people you respected the most, the people, your family, your brothers, that, like, when the criticism really came in, like, and I feel like there's times that you took it. I feel like there's times you ignored it. There's times that you had to learn the hard way. Like, we were joking about at dinner tonight. Like, oh, your wife seems to tell you this all the time. Yeah. I feel like we have that in common to a certain degree. And, you know, I just feel like there's maybe, I mean, where did that click for you that, you know, how to transition that criticism and maybe not just take it so personal and to have the time to have some perspective on that and not be able to, and to be able to use that for good versus just being like, oh man, he just told me I fucked this mission up. I could have killed, you know, whoever.
I think anytime anybody criticizes you, you should take a second to think about it. And you should ask yourself, what level of truth exists in what they said? I think that's an important thing. And I think having that self-introspection to say, you know, maybe they're negatively attacking me, but is there some truth in it? And being honest enough with yourself to say, you know what, they're right. There's a small portion of truth in that. And how do I think all of us in this life should look at how can I get a little bit better all the time. I mean, I think that this journey of leadership, I often say, the journey of leadership never ends. You could apply one scenario, one solution to a situation 2 years ago and find the exact same solution 2 years later, and it won't work. Just people are different, times are different, things are different. So you're always learning. So, and the key to leadership is your ability to lead yourself. You're growing, you're learning new experiences, new times. Every year you become a different version of yourself, you know, slightly you're growing. So listening to it and saying, what level of truth is there in that? The flip side of that coin is having the conviction when people criticize you to say, okay, you know, you're saying this about me. How much of that is some negative thing about me? And how much of it is I believe in myself and everything I stand for, and you just disagree with who I am? And if that's the case, then fuck you. I don't care. I'm going to drive forward and believe. And I get a lot of that on social media. I get, you know, I mean, the social media is a wonderful place for people to share their ideas, but you know, I get plenty of people who write me and disagree with who I am and the things I say and the career path I had. And, you know, I have conviction in my beliefs. I stopped Twitter warring people because it accomplishes nothing. But I do think, take a second. I think if you're a good leader yourself, you'll take a step back and say, is there any truth in this? And some of it, you just got to be good natured. I mean, like tonight with your wife, you know, hey, maybe there's some truth in that. Maybe there's not, you know,
right.
Same with me. I mean, my wife, I'm not perfect. I'm the overcome guy. I teach people how to overcome, how to deal with adversity, how to lead yourself out of these hard situations. But I have my own moments when I struggle with my own inner demons. And sometimes I get caught up in that. And my wife sometimes will be like, hey, do you need to go watch one of your videos? Hey, do you need to read this book? What about this book?
Yeah.
And she'll hit me with humor, but she's right. She's criticizing me for getting inside my own head. And it's good. I need to take a step back and go, you know what? You're right.
Because I think a lot of people, I think everybody does that. I mean, like, you can sit here and go, well, could I speak on this? Or could I talk about this? Because in the past, maybe I didn't make that decision. Maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I never owned that mistake that I made. So even though I've grown and changed now, does that disqualify me from being able to speak on this now? Like, I think that's a mentality that a lot of people have. And I think getting over that and being like, just because that was my past doesn't mean that's what I am today.
We know it unequivocally doesn't disqualify you. And I think I bought into that. I bought into this idea I had to be perfect. I always tried to project this perfect version and try to hide even though I wrote this book, The Trident, I talk all about my mistakes. But then I wanted to show myself as, hey, I figured it out. Now I'm perfect. Bullshit. I am as flawed and as broken as any other human out there. Do I manage myself better? 100% than a lot of people that are out there. I focus on positivity. I put discipline into my life. I put positivity and action steps and planning and all the things that I speak on into my life. Does it mean that sometimes I get knocked off course and sometimes I get wrapped up in my own little inner demons in my head? 100%. Welcome to being human. So the message for you out there is you don't have to be there. It's driving me crazy. I'm noticing there is a trend in social media pushing for perfection.
Yeah. It's just social influencers and all this shit where it's just like all this fake facade.
And I don't know, are there some people out there that are living at that highest level where they're never, like, there are people out there, I watch them, they do messages and they're like, I never watch Netflix. I've removed all the TVs in my house. Okay, hey man, good on you. Good on you. I never miss a workout. That's one I hear people say. Good on you,
Not
man.
everybody's Jocko.
Yeah, I mean...
And I'm sure even Jocko has missed a workout. I guarantee you.
I'm willing to bet that. I'm maybe not Goggins. I mean, he's some sort of genetic freak. I think Goggins is an alien. There's no truth. I love you, David Goggins. I know you're an alien. But for the rest of us mere mortals, man, I am where I am because I push myself every single day a little further. And it doesn't mean I don't get off course sometimes. I get myself back on course. That's the difference. And I just try and tell people that. You need to focus on 90% of the time killing it. If you can do that, you are better than the 7.8 billion people on this planet.
Which is like dieting. It's the 90-10 rule. If 90% of the time you are killing your diet, that other 10% doesn't matter because it's not going to ruin your diet. You can still go have that piece of cake at your kid's birthday or buddy's birthday.
Yep.
You can still go have a bourbon.
Unless you got a photo shoot the next day, and then don't do it.
I mean, I'm sure you've done crazier things after a bourbon back in the day, like rigging or rock climbing or something absolutely crazy that, I don't know how most normal people could not pull off, but somehow you SEALs find a way to do this shit.
I've had some good times in my life.
Well, I think something that kind of sums up the mentality that you take to a lot of things is the sign on the door. And for those of you that don't know it, I'm just going to read it and then let him talk about it for a minute because I think it says so much and it does not just apply to, somebody that's been injured in war. Like, I think this is a mentality and an attitude that if people adapted parts of this, no matter what they're going through, it would help them tremendously. So, when you were at Bethesda, am I saying that right? Like, that's such a weird word.
Bethesda.
All right. I did say it right. All right. Good deal. All right. So, when he was there, this is the sign he put on the door that is, like, gone viral. If you haven't heard this, I'm going to read it for you. Attention. To all who enter here, if you are coming into this room with sorrow or to feel sorry for my wounds, go elsewhere. The wounds I received, I got in a job I love, doing it for people I love, supporting the freedom of a country I deeply love. I am incredibly tough, and I will make a full recovery. What is full? That is the absolute utmost physically my body has the ability to recover. Then I will push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you are about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. Signed, Management. That is one of the most impactful statements I've read. Like I've not been injured in war or anything like that, but like, how do you think, aside, like I know this still remains at the hospital for all other wounded warriors to go by and see, but how else and what other intentions have you gotten from this that you think others should use this to apply to their life?
Well, I speak on this all the time. So what I tell people is this: what that sign represents is, there are a lot of you out there that are listening to this that you may not be able to relate to the idea of being all shot up, being blown up in combat, you know, many of the hard things we talked about earlier. But every human on this planet will encounter the bullets and bombs of life. You will get knocked down. You will get crushed. You will get fired. Someone will break up with you. Someone will be mean to you. Someone will hit you. You may be sexually assaulted or raped or whatever horrible thing that happens to humans on this planet every single day. And there are so many people that have these bad things happen. They buy into what I call the victim mindset. I'm a victim. This horrible thing happened to me and I'm never going to recover. And the reality is, what that sign represents is one critical word. The world can try and tell you that you'll never recover. The world will try and tell you that you're broken. The world will try and tell you you're a victim. The world will try and tell you you'll never be successful again. But there is one thing that the world can never take away from you, and that is choice. You have a choice. That's what that sign represents. It is a choice to get up. It is a choice to drive forward. It is a choice to overcome injury and setback and failure and breakup and whatever's happened in your life. It is a choice. It's the most powerful thing we have as humans. Like, you don't have to lay there and feel sorry for yourself. No one forces you to do it. No one forces you to be a victim. You can choose to be a victor. You can get up and drive forward. You can create massive purpose out of what happened to you and allow it to become successful. You can create massive purpose and motivate and inspire other people around you from what you've been through. That's what that sign represents. And that's what I try and tell people. Don't ever buy into this idea because something bad happened to you that you're a victim. You have a choice. Choose to drive forward, choose to overcome, and watch the massive impact you have on all the people around you and what you will have on your own life.
Absolutely, man. Right on. I'm going to do this because I'm going to forget, because I'm going to get wrapped up in this conversation and people are going to beat me up in the DMs. Everybody loves to know what we're smoking and drinking. So tonight, I couldn't do anything other than the Black Ritos. I mean, you guys all know this is one of my favorite cigars. It's a cigar I brought Jay.
It is an incredibly smooth cigar.
Went to the Eagle Rise Summit. So everybody that is sitting here, whether you can see us on camera or not, we are smoking Black Ritos right now.
And this guy did a great job. His video is coming. He did a great job. I told him he's got a future standing on stages, talking about communication, talking about how to engage people in conversation.
See, he's putting that out there on me again. But I did. I said,
if you're listening to this, you need to bring this guy to your company to talk to your people about how you can better communicate and build relationships.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I couldn't have done it without your coaching. Like that, I will still, we're going to dig into that in a little bit, but like that's one of the best things I feel like I've done for myself, for like my personal education and what I've done attending your very first, and I'm very proud to be a part of the inaugural class.
Plank owner.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's a Navy term.
Yeah.
Plank owner. So
All right.
plank owner, I'm going to tell everybody what this is. I'm not a plank owner. I was never a plank owner in the Navy. I'm sad to say that. But when naval ships were built, the planks that they used to lay the bottom of the ship, the keel and around it, they would cut off pieces of those planks and give it to the original crew, and they would become plank owners. So now any new command in the Navy, the people who are first at that command are plank owners. So you're a plank owner of the Eagle Rise Speaker Summit.
Badass. I love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait. That's awesome. But yeah, that experience was bar none one of the best things I've done for myself, to literally get off my ex because of a failed speaking event that I did. And I'm not going to lie, it was super fucking intimidating. When you guys sent out that first email, I wanted to strangle Erica. I was like, this wasn't in the description when I paid my money.
Wait, you say you want to strangle my what?
I was like, 15 minutes of a TED Talk? Like, I thought that's the whole reason I'm coming here, is you're going to teach me how to do all these things and be a better speaker. And I'm like, holy shit, what did I sign myself for? But I knew, and one of the reasons I did is because, like, I had followed you for a long time. I had read your books. I knew what I was into, and like I knew that there was no way I was going to ring that bell on you, especially knowing I'm the first damn class. Like, I felt like in a lot of instances, I would have maybe gone through the class and been like, yeah, I did all this. I paid my money. You got my money. But like, I ain't doing that speaking thing. And like, there was no way I could have rang that bell with the group I was with and everything else and all the positivity and these people just pouring all this knowledge into you. I mean, we did talk about it. Like, I think it needs to be a little bit longer class for anybody that's not in the inaugural, because it was like a mastermind in like rapid, like the mission is happening tonight. Here you go. Bam. Like,
here's your gun.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're going. We just got this intel and this is happening now. My whole crew's here to film this. You're going now.
Well, we learned a lot of lessons from the first one, so we're already looking at how we can expand.
But I mean, I highly recommend it to anybody that you want a great coach, like right here. Like, he has done this. He has developed himself into this speaker that he is now. He didn't start off doing this. Like, he never thought he was going to be out speaking on stages, telling these stories and learning the art of storytelling. I mean, just being able to hear you talk about how you prepare, what you do, what you don't do. This is how you travel. This is how you prep for this. I mean, down to the nuts and bolts. I mean, you guys covered everything, but then again, it was just like bam, 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 bam. But I got there and it's like, then I start meeting the other 11 people that are here with me. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I am the only person that has not written a book, already doing speaking. Like, I am behind the 8 ball here. Like, all right, game on. Like, I got to come up with something, because I'm not ringing the bell on this. Like, I've got to do something. Like, I'm not going to be the jackass up here.
But then you shook that magic 8 ball and it said, let's do this.
No, it also said, your word is garden. And I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, great exercise, but man, that sucked. And you're going after somebody like Danny, man, like rapid fire. Like, that dude is intense.
Danny speaks like a machine gun.
Danny speaks like a machine gun, and with the same intensity too, I believe.
Yeah. No,
not
awesome.
that I have the same experience as you.
Danny Farrar, much love to you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. But all the people that I met there, man, like it, and the fact that I'll say this too, because I've gone to a lot of other speaking things or just networking business events that you could pay for your own personal journey to educate yourself. I've done a lot of these things. Not everybody does what he did. And I mean, to knock it out of the park on the first one like that, like, not everybody gives you full access to their A-team. I mean, you brought in everybody that is on your team. I mean, I mean, I don't know what you possibly could have left out other. I mean, you didn't bring your suit guy in to sell us suits, but I mean,
You're right.
you did talk about him
that'll
though.
be next time.
You did talk about him, but I mean, you literally brought in your marketing team, your podcast team, your, you know, all your other coaches, some of your mentors, you know, people that you work with on a day-to-day basis. And these people were all there and giving 100% to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely amazing. Like,
shout out my team out there. So
yeah, all of you. You're awesome.
My son, who is here in the back of the room, who has amazing, he is a savant when it comes to audio visual. He built all the audio visual stuff for our new event center. He ran all the audio visual for us. The rest of my team, Reframe Your Brand marketing team, obviously my wife, Kim and Cindy on the backside, who help manage all the accounting and everything related to speaking. So yeah, anybody out there who's successful has built a great team, and I am fortunate enough to have a good one.
I can verify that. He has a great team. And Sean, if you're watching this by any rare chance, I'm really sorry I told your hairspray story. Really sorry.
I'm not. I'll be bringing it up to you, Sean.
I'm going to get
Sean
a lot
and Jill.
I'm going to get a lot of payback for that one.
Because as a man with great hair, I can't wait to talk to you about this.
You thought the Botox things were bad. This is, yeah, sorry, bro. Well, Matt, can you talk maybe a little bit about the importance of team dynamics in high-stress environments from your time in the teams and how those principles could be applied in business or your personal life?
Yeah, 100%. So first off, in any high-stress environment, let's talk first about an overcome mindset, because really in a high-stress environment, it's an overcome mindset that's going to make all the difference. An overcome mindset has to be taught with individuals initially. And then you bring individuals. You have to teach people to be leaders of themselves. You have to teach them they have the ability to overcome. They have the ability to deal with stress. They have the ability to deal with problems, with adversity. So that is a cultural thing that you need to build within yourself, and then that extension needs to go into your family. That extension needs to go into your team and into your business. It's something that you have to set the example, and then they follow you. My kids and my family, I have set an example, and what's exciting to see is now they're older. They're all young adults, but they're all running their own paths. But frequently they will say things that I have taught them over the years, or things that I have done myself. Why? Because we learn by watching other people. Mother and father are probably the most important leadership titles you will ever hold. And if you think that, do as I say, not as I do applies as a parent, you're absolutely wrong. That is a flawed manner of leadership. It's an old school manner of leadership. If you're going to be an effective leader and you want to teach people how to overcome and build great teams that can deal with adversity and have great team dynamics, it starts with you. And you need to be the one that's leading and showing that you have the ability to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you're the best at everything. That's impossible. No one is. But I tell you what, when your team looks at you and says, hey, I know that Garrett may not be the best at this, but I tell you what, man, holy shit, does that guy grind to be a better speaker or to be a better, when we see leaders that are aspiring to be better, that's the basis of the overcome mindset. And that has to be encouraged and taught. Once you do that, now you can start building amazing teams. You want to build amazing team dynamics, teach everybody on the team they're a leader. I have an exercise I do in events. I almost don't want to tell it because people will be in on my little secret that I like to do in events. And I won't tell the secret, but the idea is this, that you need to build teams, and this is one of the things SEAL teams do, that everybody on that team is a leader. And we have a saying, in the absence of leadership, I will step up and lead. If you want teams who are going to function well in adversity, they need to be able to function without a leader. One of the things that we focus on in combat is the fact that in a split second, the leader can be killed. The second leader can be killed. The third leader can be killed. The fourth leader can be killed. The fifth leader can be killed. Suddenly the new guy's the most senior man. Well, guess what? You better step up and lead. And if you don't teach that from the beginning, then you're going to have teams that collapse when things start to fall apart and go wrong. So that has to be built. That is a cultural thing.
Sir.
So it starts, thank you. It starts with building a mindset of overcoming adversity. From there, it starts with how do you teach people how to lead themselves? How do you teach them how to be goal setters? How do you teach them how to build structure and discipline? How do you teach them how to deal with adversity when they encounter it? And then from there, you teach them how to operate as a team. Now, that's where teams are incredibly successful in any situation. I don't care how bad things go, they now have trained to, it doesn't matter. I teach I'm a part of a group, Tactical 21, that runs tactical and defense and survival training. And one of the fundamental questions we ask at the very beginning of the training is, will you be ready? And a lot of people say, well, for what? The answer is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If tomorrow the whole world collapsed into massive chaos, if suddenly, I don't know, aliens attacked our planet and killed the entire power grid and the entire planet, this world would plunge into chaos and anarchy very quickly. So how are you going to deal with that? What have you done to prepare for that? What are you going to do for your family? Do you have any, How long do you have rations? Do you have weapons to defend yourself and your family? By the way, I'm a big proponent of the Second Amendment. All these things make a difference, but it takes a mindset of preparation. And it takes a mindset of, I have no clue what's going to happen. It doesn't mean that I'm going to think of the most worst case scenarios and spend all my time in the world preparing for that. Preppers are like that. If anybody out there, preppers are individuals who believe that if the world collapsed, they have
sky is falling.
Yeah, they have a bunker and they have 12 years worth of food, and good on them. But I will tell you, they spend all their time in the world preparing for. They spend 90% of their time preparing for maybe a 5% possibility of happening. What I tell people is an overcome mindset is built on three things. Number one, it's built on awareness. I'm aware that this could happen, that the world could collapse, that bad things could happen, that I could lose my job, that tomorrow I may never do another speaking event. I could get sick. I could get diagnosed with cancer. God forbid, I could lose my wife. All these things, there's an awareness. You're living in la la land if you think that none of those things will ever happen to you. They happen. Bad things happen to good people every day. Number two is preparation. If I know those things could happen, how do I prepare? And sometimes it's only mental preparation. Sometimes it's just, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I not totally shut down and cease to function and just collapse if this happens? I still have to function. I'm a leader. There are other people I need to lead, other people I need to drive forward, and no matter what, I need to lead myself forward. And number three is action. If I'm aware, if I've prepared, number three, guess what? Now I have to get up. I have to take action. I have to drive forward. If you can apply that principle to yourself and you can apply it to your teams, you're going to crush it in any endeavor you have. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that it's always going to go according to plan.
What was the group again that you said you teach this in?
Tactical 21.
Tactical 21. Where do you guys train at? Where do you do that? Is that up in Virginia?
Yeah, we train at the old Blackwater facility. So we run multiple courses. We run a lot of basic courses, and then we run a bigger course called Overcome and Survive. It's a 3-day course where we teach survival, we teach trauma medicine, we teach basic weapons handling, and we teach self-defense and really a little bit of situational awareness and threat mitigation.
So this is a lot like, for those that are here in Texas, I know a lot of these people here
Tim
follow
Kennedy's,
this, like Tim Kennedy's sheepdog response, like that?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
So Tim's doing it on a bigger level, and much mad respect for Tim and all he's doing. We just saw a need. People kept asking me, hey, what do I do if this happens? So we started running some of this training. And if you're in Texas, go see Tim.
Fuck that. I'm going up to come hang out with you.
His sheepdog response program is great. what we're doing is very similar. I think Chad Robichaud may be doing some also. I love Chad. There's a lot of people, there are a lot of ex-special operations guys who understand we live in a dangerous world. I pray that our political leaders can figure things out and bring us all back together, and that we can have a great world and a stable economy and a stable world we're living in. I pray that's the case. But I'll tell you what, man, at any given time, we're only about 96 hours away from chaos. That's the reality. And I hope we never go there, but I have taught my kids to be ready. I have taught my kids how to use a firearm. I have taught my kids survival. And I have taught them that there is no guarantee in this life. Like, you can do everything right and the world will turn upside down, and suddenly you'll be sitting there going, well, this isn't fair. Welcome to the real world.
Yeah, it's not all roses.
It ain't all rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes it's rainbow shit and and dirty leprechauns.
Oh, well, man, what are some daily habits or routines that help you maintain your discipline and focus that you do on a daily basis? I mean, like, what do the non-negotiables look like for you in your daily routine, even though you have this like crazy schedule, balancing family, your travel, your speaking stuff, your teaching, all these things you do? I mean, like, I don't know how you keep up with all of it, but like, what are some of those, like, what does a day in Jason's life look like? Like, what are some of the routines? And again, what are some of the like non-negotiables that, like, no matter what you're going to do?
Cigar and whiskey every day. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
Almost never, I'll be honest. I live by a principle that I call the rule of 3 Ps. And the rule of 3 Ps is very simple. Almost every day, I don't want to say every single day of my life. Someday I take a day off and I try and relax. People who know me, I frequently have met people who follow me. Kenny Mitchell's a good example of this. Much love to you, Kenny.
Awesome dude. Kenny
knew me for years. Kenny became one of my coaches. Kenny recently retired and now is part of my team. And he now works for us. He now is in the building with us on a regular basis.
Another speaker I had to work with.
And Kenny's awesome.
I didn't have to, but I got to work with, I should say.
Kenny focuses on mental health he spent many years in the firefighter community. He now focuses on mental health for firefighters, Operation Yellow Tape. Go check it out. But Kenny said to me, podcast. He said, bro, like, I knew you were like, you move nonstop, but he's like, being around you and following you, like, I don't understand how you do it. That being said, I do every now and then take a day off. But I follow one thing I try and do every single day, the rule of 3 Ps. I try and do one thing physical every day. I try and get a workout in. Usually it's weights, usually it's something cardio. If nothing else, I'm going to get out and go for a walk and be out, but something physical to move my body. Number 2, I try and do something personal. I try and do something for me, or I want to do something with my family. I love my family. I'm here in Texas. Obviously, my son is here. We spent the day together because family is incredibly important to me. Also, taking care of ourselves personally is critical. Leaders need time to think. So frequently, that's my time where I'm thinking about upcoming speeches, or I'm thinking about business problems or opportunities, but I make sure I make some of that personal time. The third thing is professional. I'm going to put some time into my work, or the different things I'm working on. I'm going to attack whatever work problem it is, even if it's only 30 minutes in a day, but whatever it is. Maybe I'm going to devote time to developing this new speech. Maybe I'm going to devote time to this business problem. Right now with this building, every time I turn around, there's some other issue. So the rule of 3 Ps, 1 personal, 1 physical, 1 professional, every day, that is a non-negotiable. I do that every day. It may only take an hour one day. It may take 12 hours one day. But no matter what, those things happen. And I will say that it has helped me to be very successful in my life. It's enabled me to still be despite being grievously injured, it's enabled me to still maintain a pretty good level of physical fitness. It's enabled me to become a multimillionaire. It's enabled me to have a very strong family and a pretty awesome life.
Right on, man. Are you a journaler? Do you journal?
No, I keep trying to journal and I suck at it. I keep telling myself I want to keep a journal.
You don't have a journal of all these bad jokes?
No.
I find this really hard to believe.
No.
All off the cuff?
A lot of them I memorize, I write. I do have an app for jokes. I'll pull jokes up. But the reason I have I've always liked jokes. But the reason I have tons of jokes is my mentor and a good friend of mine, Bedros Keuilian, who I am a part of his Legacy Tribe coaching team. I'm one of the triad of coaches. So Bedros and I have been friends for years, and I really encourage everybody out there, find a good friend and mentor, someone that's at a higher level than you. Bedros set a higher level than me.
You're killing so many questions every time I ask you one. Like, you are absolutely annihilating my questions.
I'm sorry. So, find someone who is where you want to go. Bedros Keuilian is where I want to go. Bedros Keuilian is a 200 millionaire. He created a business franchise. He has an amazing ability to look at people's businesses and 10x their business. If any of you are out there and you are struggling with your business, Bedros does one-on-one coaching. He is not cheap, but I tell you what, almost everyone that's ever coached with him, he has doubled, tripled, 5x or 10x their business in less than a year from coaching with them, their annual revenues, because he has that ability to help them. He's been a friend of mine, so he's kind of like a personal coach and a friend. Anyways, where do I go with that? Where does the joke come in? So every week we send a message back and forth to each other. We check in with each other. And what we do is we take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes and we just say, be this, where he says, Jason Redman, what's going on, brother? And we go, this is what's going on in my life. This is what's going on professionally. These are the problems I'm dealing with. Personally, family, anything. We talk about it all. And then you finish and you have to tell a joke. And they're terrible. I mean, they're so great. He and I... So I got a deep reference. I got a deep library of jokes from every week.
That's awesome. Bedros is he's in my top 10 of like people I would like to sit down and have a conversation with.
We'll get him here.
Like Bedros is like, I mean, I've followed his stuff for a long time, but
we'll get him
since
here.
You jumped there.
Hang on. I want to finish with journaling. I like to write. And I every year I'm like, I'm going to keep a journal. I have this app called.
Did you sell a journal?
Yeah, I have a journal. Well, that's not journaling. That's a planner.
Oh, okay,
and
planner.
I do use the planner. That's different.
All right.
Journaling is I'm writing about my day, my thoughts, all these things.
You got one of these bad boys.
I downloaded this app called, I think it's called the One Journal. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I was like, this is so great. Like, because what I was really fascinated is you could print the journal at the end of the year and you could put pictures into it. And every year I try and do it and I get off course and I suck. So every year I try and do it and I get off course and
I'm not religious about it, but I do it a lot. Like I'm one of those people that a lot of times I have trouble shutting my brain off at night. Like I get to bed and it's just like I'm sitting there and I'm like thinking about everything I do. And an eye doctor that I had in my teens literally was like, write it down. Whether you write for 5 minutes or an hour, just get out and start writing. It'll help you. Your brain will not be telling you like, I'm going to forget this.
So I don't journal like that, but I am writing notes every day, all day long. I'm writing things about business. I am writing things. Today there's at least 4 new notes in my phone. One is about the new speech that I have 1 minute to deliver a speech as impactful as humanly possible. One was about, it was business related. One was about our building and one of the big challenges that we're facing. I was writing through solutions and potential opportunities on how we can attack that problem. So I'm always writing things down.
Yeah.
I just don't do it in a journal format. I do it in Apple Notes. Thank you, Tim Cook.
I'm guilty of that all the time too. I mean, whether it gets to here or notes or reminders, like one of the crazy things, my wife and I both shared reminder lists. This gets like completely out of hand, but like everything from a grocery list to the Costco list to shit that needs to be done around the house. Like, yeah, it's all over the place. But since you brought up bed roast, and I want to go down this road because I think a lot of people search for these things and don't always know how to go about it or where to find them. But what has the effect of mentors been on your life? And then how did you go about finding and selecting the mentors that you've put in your life, such as bed roast, and how did you manifest those relationships?
So for me, finding mentors, sometimes they kind of naturally develop, but almost every time, and I've had 3 big mentors in my life. And then a lot of smaller mentors. I won't even get into the smaller one. Let's focus on the big ones. Number one, they were 2 military leader mentors. Number one, I speak a lot about in both books, a SEAL leader by the name of Vince Peterson, not his real name. Vince is, they do not make men like Vince Peterson anymore.
This is the guy that, when you had to go to Ranger school as quote unquote punishment, this is the one that guy actually called that happened to be friends with.
Who saved my career. Yeah. Both those guys saved my career. But Vince was my commanding officer at SEAL Team 4 when I was a young enlisted guy working in training, got recommended to become an officer. And he unequivocally, and to this day, is the best leader I've ever seen, hands down. I've never seen anyone that had the ability to lead like he does. His natural ability to read people, to understand how to address problems and drive a organization in a direction on where it needed to go, but to do it in a way where he was never telling them, this is what we're doing. It was more, this is where we, what's best for all of us. And people would buy into it, and he would very subtly guide it, and they would take ownership of it, and they would be the ones driving it. And very subtly, and it was only years later that I really saw this, because it was so subtle in the way he led, but he led always by positivity and by leadership by example, and just the force of who he was. So he was a mentor. My second mentor was my officer in charge when I came back after failing as a leader. And it was a hard time for me because my confidence had been shaken in myself. And obviously the confidence the guys had in me had been totally shaken. And I think he recognized, like, hey, there's 2 things that I need to do here. Number one, I got to build this guy back up to be an effective leader on the battlefield so I can depend on him. And number 2, I got to build back the trust in all these guys to believe in him, to have the ability to do that. And he was just awesome in the way he did that. Sharing things with me, the way he led, the opportunities he gave me. Both of those guys, so when we talk about looking for a mentor, I was here, both of those guys were up here. That's where I wanted to go. I wanted to be a commanding officer. I wanted to be a troop commander and a higher level SEAL leader. And both those guys were successful in those areas. They had done a great job. I wanted to follow them. I wanted to learn from them. That's how they became mentors for me. Bedros became, my most recent mentor because when I stepped out of the military, I had no clue. I was an idiot when it came to money. I had no clue about running a company or entrepreneurship or any of that. And I spoke at an event with him, and we hit it off. For a lot of different reasons. I mean, I think we're both quirky and have great sense. We have great senses of humor. and what's really funny is
Phoenix just gave that air quotes in the back for all of you wondering why we're laughing here.
It's true. It's true. Don't laugh. So when I spoke on that stage, I spoke with Ray Kerr. So Ray, shout out to you, brother. Ray and I were SEALs. Also, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. We had another SEAL there, and I apologize, brother. I'm forgetting. God, I can see his face and I can't think of his name right now, but there were 3 SEALs. And then there were quite a few. We had a couple of law enforcement, and then the rest were all high-level entrepreneurs, multimillionaires, super successful. And I remember this was earlier in my career, one of the first multi-speaker events I had done. And I won't lie, I felt intimidated. And I remember going on stage thinking like, God dang, man, who the hell am I to be speaking on this stage? Like, I'm this knuckle dragging SEAL and I'm speaking with these dudes who are multimillionaires, man. I can barely balance my bank account right now. And so months later, I told Bedros that, we had kind of become friends and started talking to each other. He offered to help and recommended some things for me to do in business. And I confided in him. I said, hey, man, I just want to let you know, man, when I went on that stage, I was super intimidated, man, to speak with you. And he was like, what? He was like, you were intimidated to speak with me? He was like, I was so intimidated to speak with all you guys. I'm speaking on this stage. He's like, I had read your book. And he's like, I was like, holy shit, what am I doing speaking on this stage with these warriors? So it was an awesome moment. And it made me realize that in this life, everybody is carrying their own internal demons and doubts. I don't care who you are, from Michael Jordan to The Rock. We all have the challenges we face and the lens that we look through. So looking for people that are a higher level that you can be yourself and be authentic and talk about your problems and the challenges you face. So look for people who are where you want to go. And if you know them, reach out to them and just build a relationship. I didn't meet Bedros and say, hey man, will you be my mentor? I will say there are people that sometimes write me and they'll be like, will you be my friend? And I was like, that's just weird. That's just weird.
It's weird.
Like I'm like, build a relationship first. Yeah. And I will tell you, a lot of people, I am on the go all the time. I have a pretty tight inner circle. I will admit it's hard to break into my inner circle only because it's not because I don't like you and not because I don't like friends. It's just difficult for me because I run this insane, hectic life where I do 100 events a year. Yeah. But if you're looking to build a relationship with a mentor, do it, and you don't know them from Adam, do it slowly over time. Get to know them. Look for opportunities. Go to their events. Let me tell you something. If you had written me, I would have offered you advice, but we would never have already the relationship that's starting to build.
Right.
It built because you came to my event and I had an opportunity to get to know you for who you are and spend time with you. And that's where relationships are built. Mentorships get built that way.
I agree 100%. This is one of the things I've spoken on many times, that you can participate without providing any value. Like, and that kind of goes two ways there. Like, I mean, yeah, you want to participate, but like, are you adding any value? Like, did you come into this just trying to get something for you, or were you trying to like help others too? Like, or were you trying to grow? Like, kind of you need to have a clear understanding of what that is, I think too. And like, yeah, that's super weird to send somebody a DM and just be like, can I be your best friend? Yeah. Like, I love Navy SEALs, Jason.
It is.
You know, I could see how.
It's very weird.
Yeah. I mean, and people that come up and act like they've known you their whole life too.
That happens too.
Or
they've read the book and they come up and act like, yeah, look, I meet lots of people at events and I appreciate everyone that follows me. I do my best to try and answer every message I get. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. I have an amazing team that obviously tries to help me manage all that. But
send all your DMs to Jill Bunny.
It takes time. Relationships are built in person. They're not built online. Yeah. That's the reality. And they can start online. I will admit that recently I had an incredibly high level person follow me. I was very excited. I'm not going to name them because that would be weird. But I hope someday I can get to meet this person. I hope someday, right now I have nothing to offer them.
Yeah.
Nothing. They're at massive high level success. but I look at them as someone who I aspire to. I love what they do. I love their work ethic. I love their positivity that they put out online and things that they do. I hope someday I can meet them. I hope someday maybe I could, maybe cross paths with them. But I'm sure as hell not going to write them and be like, hey, man, can we be friends?
Yeah. And that was not one of his jokes, for the record.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So, I got asked this today, literally, how do you, and this is funny because, my day job, I'm a partner in a construction firm. And I get, ever since I started this podcast, I have more people coming up to me asking me, how did you get so-and-so on your show? How do you know so-and-so? How did you do this? And, I got asked today, like, how do you get your guests? How do you do this? And I said, honestly, it's very organic. Obviously I'm in a sales position, so networking, building relationships, that's the essence of my job. Like that's what I've spent my whole career doing. So learning how to communicate with people and build a relationship and not be the weird person in someone's DMs, like, can I be your friend? You got to take how would you want to be approached? Like, if you think it's weird, if someone did that to you, I probably wouldn't do that. I would pick something, like attend somebody's event.
I'm gonna throw something else out. Like, people frequently write me and they're like, hey, if you're here, come to my house and have dinner with me. Like, I don't know you from Adam, man. And I appreciate, like, I think about that and I'm like, okay, I know you don't mean anything by that. I know you mean you're being very genuine and you want to invite me into your home, but try and take it from my perspective. I don't know you from Adam. I don't know if you're potentially like someone who really hates me and is trying to bait me into coming to your house where you could kill me. Like, I would never let my guard down to do that.
Perfect example.
Unless I knew you.
Yeah, perfect example. You and I have spent some time together. Granted, not a lot yet, but we've spent some long days.
We spent several days together where we got to know a lot about each other.
Even when I got back, this all started from me sending you a text message of gratitude saying, like, hey, man, like, I really just want to say thank you for everything that, like, you did for me over this weekend. Like, this really changed a lot of things for me. When you're here visiting your son or whatever, I know you come to Dallas a lot. I would love to sit down with you again, man. Like, let's just go have a cigar. Let's go have a drink. Like, would love to do it again. And that turned into you being here now. And even then, I wasn't like, hey, Jason, come to my house. Let me make you dinner and stuff like that. Like, it's too soon.
Will you come to my house? I'd like to give you a back rub.
Yeah. I've got lots of good dirty jokes for you. Yeah, it's just, it's not appropriate in the sequence of events. You got to build relationships with people. There is a natural process to this. Like, if you think it would be weird, it's definitely weird to them.
Yep.
So, and like, it even evolved. You were like, hey, I'm hanging out with my son today. Is it cool if he joins us for dinner? I was trying to keep dinner very minimal because I didn't want you to feel like you were being paraded around or like that there was all these people like coming to see Jason Redman, like same thing with doing the show. Like, I didn't want that. Like, that wasn't the intention. So, but then you hit me up and I was like, cool. I was like, well, actually my little brother's in town and I got a cousin in town. You're like, absolutely, let's do it. Bring your wife. Like, let's hang out. Like, there's just a natural order that, like, so many people seem lost in this common communication and way to build relationships and have rapport with somebody.
Because we don't know how to do it anymore.
Yeah, because we all live by this phone.
That's
and
right.
Social media.
That's why I told you that your speech is so critical. You're doing the old school method of building friendships and relationships that a lot of people just don't know how to do anymore. They think that a like and a comment and, hey, if I follow you, or we're friends together on social media, that means that translates into let's hang out together in person. But there's so much deeper nuance to personal relationship that gets into what are our shared values, what are our views on the world, and that only occurs with personal interaction.
Yeah. And,
I don't want to say that only occurs, but it's very difficult to get deep into the personal interaction over a phone or over a digital platform.
There's no tone. There's
Right.
there's no expressions. You lose all of that. Like
There's no fantastic sarcasm and
Yeah.
and horrible jokes.
yeah, and your horrible joke could even be more horrible because they don't have the tone or can't see the inflection on your face.
Right.
I mean, like it's all part of the process, though. Well, you kind of touched on this earlier a little bit, but I think it's one of the things you speak really well about, and maybe you could touch on it just a little bit more. What do you believe makes a great leader of men, and what qualities do you think those leaders innately had, and which of them do you think can be learned? Because I know you had a long journey in this.
I think probably one of the most powerful things is conviction. A leader who believes in themselves and believes in what they stand for. I think that's probably one of the most powerful things. And the secondary thing is their ability to lead themselves behind that conviction and stay true to that path. I haven't always done that. I think sometimes I got off course. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm getting more convicted in my views. I look at I think people are attracted to that. They're attracted to people who have strong beliefs in their conviction. It makes other people that can sometimes make them polarizing, because there are some people that say, well, I don't like that person because of their views. There are other people that say, well, I love their views. I love what they stand for. I love, their conviction. Sean Whalen is an interesting example of this. I'd like to go spend some time with Sean Whalen. I met Sean Whalen at an event back in January and got to spend time with him, and I just really enjoyed it. Sean runs a company called Lions Not Sheep. Sean is very vocal in his convictions on family and on business and on masculinity and marriage and all these things that some people are more neutral on. I agree with a lot of the things Sean says. Sean sometimes says things that I don't always agree with, but I still respect the fact that he has conviction in saying all those things. No, I appreciate that about him. And he runs a company called Lions Not Sheep. It's an amazing brand that's all about being a leader in a world of people who just are content to be followers. I only say that because of his conviction, people are polarized about him. There are people who love him or hate him. So I think that's a powerful trait in leadership, and you should figure out what you believe and stand behind it. It doesn't mean you have to be a dick about it. That's a really big thing. Trump is a very polarizing leader, and he frequently comes across as a dick. It's one of the things that drives me a little crazy about him. And that could be an entire rabbit hole we can go down, but I'll just leave it at that. I think some of the best leaders I know, Vince Peterson, one of the most convicted leaders I know, also one of the most humble and non-polarizing leaders. He set the example in everything he did. You looked at him and knew his belief system. I would say Mad Dog Mattis is like this. Mad Dog Mattis, was an amazing warrior who had tremendous conviction in his views as a leader. And I think he summed it up once when he said, be nice to everyone you meet and have a plan to kill them. I think that's a wonderful description of how, a convicted leader who, make no mistake, we live in a dangerous world. I love that view. There are a lot of people who will disagree with that. They'll say Jason Redman's an incredibly violent person for saying that. But guess what? We live in a dangerous world. So I just think that as a leader, self-leadership and living your principles, setting the example, and having conviction. George Washington, one of my favorite leaders from history. And we're in a time right now that we're kind of recently we've been throwing a lot of our founding fathers under the bus, and we were at a time in history when obviously slavery was a blight on the beginning of America, but we didn't create slavery. Slavery occurred all around the world, and unfortunately, it became something that we had here in America. And some of our founding fathers had slaves, including George Washington. So what happens is we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are people that say, well, George Washington was a horrible leader because he had slaves. Well, that's not necessarily true. He was an amazing leader. Remove that for now, and this was a common problem that occurred in society back then. So let's remove that from the equation for a moment if you have the ability to do that. When I watched George Washington, he had amazing conviction. He did not want to be the leader of the Continental Army. He knew the problems that he was facing by stepping up to become the leader of this ragtag militia that was stepping up against the greatest military in the world at that time to try and fight for our freedom against the greatest military in the world. And he knew he was giving so much up. He knew he was leaving. He had built this beautiful life for himself. He had this beautiful home at Mount Vernon in outside of Washington, D.C. at that time, obviously leaving his wife. But one of the things that I think he was such an amazing leader is everyone believed in him at the beginning of the war. And as the war wound on, as several years went by, we were losing. We were getting our ass kicked. And we get into the winter at Valley Forge, and everyone lost their faith in Washington. His own friends were writing him and saying, like, you're a bad leader. Congress was writing him and saying, you're a bad leader. He was having half his men were mutiny and deserting on a record level. Men were dying all over where they were wintering at Valley Forge. They didn't have enough equipment. They didn't have enough clothes. People didn't have shoes. Literally, they were frostbite, getting their toes cut off. And he had the conviction to say, I believe that this is something we need to continue to fight for. And despite everyone telling me that they don't believe in me, I'm going to continue and drive forward on this path that I set. And we wouldn't have a country if it wasn't for that conviction that occurred over that winter. And that is powerful.
Absolutely. All right, I got a question for you based on some of your stories I've read in the books now. It kind of ties into that. Were you ever able to make amends with those who you had your biggest battles with? Any of them? Some of them? None of them?
No. I have not made amends with my platoon chief that we had, that we really went after it with each other. And interestingly enough, I actually reached out to a very respected mass chief, and I said, hey, do you think I should reach out and try and mend fences with him? Because it's one of the top questions that people ask me.
Really?
Yep.
Damn, I thought I found one that nobody had asked you.
No. But it's a good question. It is a good question. And he said, nah. He said, I would let it go. You know, he and I had different viewpoints on leadership. And, but at the end of the day, when I look back, we had different approaches to leadership, but he was a good SEAL, and he believed, and he was a good fighter. There's no doubt about it. He was a great SEAL and a great warrior.
Yeah, you said if you had to pick somebody on your team, like you would want to fight with him.
He was. And I don't know what he thinks about me. He probably thinks, fuck that guy. He wrote a book. He was a piece of shit. I know there are some guys out there that think that. I've accepted that I have driven forward and overcome my own shortcomings and those things. There are other guys that I've had issues with. I've tried to mend. I just recently tried to mend fences with a guy, and he pretty much, told me he did not want to do that. So I think in this life, it's unfortunate. There are sometimes you just have to accept that people have different opinions, they have different views, have conviction in yourself, and accept that you're never going to make everybody happy.
Right on. All right, so we talked about the Eagle Rise Summit a little bit, and most of what you do now is your speaking engagements. It's probably your number one thing. So how do you prepare for your engagements without giving away too much? Because I feel like if you really want to learn these things, you should go take its course. But how do you prepare for those? And I guess the biggest thing I want to ask you is I've watched several different of your speeches. I've only got to see a few in person, but when you're crafting one of these talks or speeches, what is it typically that you're hoping that your audience takes away from your talks?
I mean, there's several things. I want the audience to be able to relate. And that's sometimes a hard thing as a SEAL. SEALs are something that people read about in books, they see in movies, and I think oftentimes they're placing us on this superhuman pedestal that isn't reality. SEALs are still human. We have flaws, we have our problems, we have issues, no different than anybody else. Are we able to operate potentially at a higher level and endure more discomfort and maybe lead in more chaotic situations than the average person? Yes. Some of that is probably a little bit genetic. Some of that is conditioned over time. So one of the biggest things I try to overcome is, how do I relate to the audience? How do I connect to the audience and be able to make you understand that Jason Redman, the Navy SEAL, is still Jason Redman, the broken human. That's no different from you. And that the things that I built into my life to overcome the challenges where I was broken and where I faced adversity are no different than what you can put into your life. That's my biggest goal, so that when you walk away, you can relate and say, holy smokes, I came thinking I was going to hear these cool stories about this Navy SEAL, but I walked away with tools that make me better. And that is my goal when I speak. I want people to walk away and say, wow, there were tangible things that I can apply into my own life that will help me to be better. And that to me is like the biggest gift. I pray before every speaking event, God, help me to impact one person. Like one person walks away and tells me they got off the X, or they were struggling with something, that they were able to apply something that made their family better, them better, their business better, whatever it is. So that is the goal. Every speech always has the same core messages in it: leadership and resilience. But from there, it gets into sub-messages that are based on the audience and maybe what that company is looking for. And that's where it changes a little bit based on the event. But the core message, and I think that's the key as a professional speaker, your core message has to be you. You can adapt a little bit based on the audience. You don't want to be so static that you're just delivering the exact same presentation every time you get up there. I'm always thankful that frequently I've had people that have heard me 3, 4, maybe even 5 times. Even my own wife will often come listen to a speech. She'll be at a speech and she'll be like, wow, I never heard that story. I never heard you tell this that way. Because I'm always looking for what are better ways that I can connect and relate to people. What story can I tell that doesn't make you say, well, that's a Navy SEAL story. It makes you say, holy shit, I'm human too. And that guy just told a story that's human. And I relate to that. I can connect to that. And I think that's the key in being a great public speaker.
Let me ask you a question. Have you had anybody's story devastate you? Not devastate you in the back, but just been blown away? So what you teach, just like when you had Garrett's thing, or just when you have conversations in general, is there a story that somebody told you or you related to that even made you sit back and, I mean, you've been through some shit.
Yes.
But somebody else's story that made you sit back and go, wow.
Yes. The foundation of the get off the X principle came from a Navy corpsman who had been in a horrific incident. And basically he told, I ran for a period of time. I ran a program called the Overcome Academy, and we were teaching wounded warriors. I had this vision that I wanted wounded warriors to get out into society and speak at schools and tell their stories, because I knew there was power in my story to help people be better. So I was trying to train and teach other wounded warriors how to do that. And this individual, this young man, came to our program and they had told me about, they said, hey, this guy really has been through some hard things. He basically has locked himself away and hasn't gone out in public. He does not talk about his story. One of the things with our program, you had to tell your story. It was part of the event. It was part of the process. And everybody got up. Obviously, he kind of waited to the end. And then finally, he got up and told his story. And the story he told was he was a corpsman assigned in the very, maybe the very beginning of the Iraq invasion, 2003, maybe. And they were in a convoy. He was with the Marines, and the vehicle in front of him, it hit an IED, large IED, and vehicle, it detonated, and he got out of his vehicle and went up to this burning vehicle to try and help get this young Marine. They were in some sort of armored vehicle. The blast bent the frame of the vehicle, and this young Marine was trying to get out of the vehicle, but the door was wedged shut. And the corpsman was doing everything he could to open that door, foot on the door, trying to open it. And he could not get that door open. And the young Marine on the inside is doing everything to get out. And literally the vehicle was on fire inside, and he watched this young Marine burn to death in front of him through the window as he tried to get him out. And it was right at the end of the deployment. He went home and he got out of the Navy and locked himself away. He blamed himself for not saving that Marine. And it was like an epiphany moment. I was like, holy smokes, man. Like, you literally, it was the birth of the idea of getting off the X. Because I realized in that moment, I was like, holy smokes, man, you guys were ambushed in Iraq, and you were on the X, and you literally chained yourself to the X from that incident. And he went on out of our program. It still took him a while to get off the X and overcome. And he went on to become a chef. I've talked to him several times over the years, but that story was haunting and horrific. And there's so many that are out there. That's the reality. And it is empowering to me how many people now reach out to me and they've read Overcome. Kenny Mitchell is a great example, who had some major traumatic incident that occurred in his life, which he now speaks on, and was stuck on the X and chained to the X. And I think it's incredible now to find people who are understanding, I'm stuck on the X. I mean, you talked about it earlier. I mean, just sometimes in this life, we don't even realize it. We chain ourselves to some traumatic event that we've been through, and we think it is our duty to suffer and to blame ourselves when I don't believe that. I believe those things can make us stronger and better. And it was amazing to see that he finally got off that X and drove forward.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps on that one. That reminds me of when Byers, we have a good friend that was on here, Marine, lost his leg. Similar situation where he started the story telling us how they literally drew straws in the back of the Humvee for when they saw an IED or something, and maybe there was a wire sticking out of the ground as they were doing their outer patrol. And they were literally drawing straws to see who had to go pull the wire to see if it's an ID. I'm like, how in today's age with our military and technology are our Marines literally sitting in the back of a Humvee drawing straws to see which poor devoted soul has to go pull on a fucking wire in a desert city to see if it's going to explode? That's absolutely insane to me. But that's the reality of it. That's what those guys are doing.
Yeah.
But so with what you just said, you made a post that I struggled with and really wanted to respond to at one point, right before I went to your Eagle Rise Summit, where I'm going to probably butcher this, but you were like, I'm ready for the 2.0 Redman. you know, like, yes, I was a Navy SEAL. Yes, I'm part of the Brotherhood. Yes, I was shot up, but I'm ready for 2.0. What does that look like to you? Because I mean, like, obviously, like, that's something that's never going to leave you. Like, that's a part of you. That's a part of your story. To you, what is your goal? Where are you trying to go now? Like, with the 2.0 Redman, is it coaching? Like, what is it about you that you really want to get out there and establish as 2.0 Redman?
Most people find me, and I mean, some of it we've branded this way, and obviously, I mean, both books have the Trident. I mean, being a SEAL for 21 years it's part of who I am. I would love to supersede that. I would love to rise above that to where that just becomes a part of my past, and that people find me because they say that guy puts out amazing content. People don't follow Gary Vee because he was a SEAL. They follow Gary Vee because he puts out great content and it's interesting and it means value to them. Simon Sinek was not a SEAL. Tony Robbins wasn't a SEAL. I would love to move to a higher level where the content I'm putting out resonates with people because I'm human and they're human. And the content I'm putting out and what I'm writing and trying to help people do resonates with them on a human level. And being a SEAL just happens to be a fact. It just happens to be, well, something that guy did. And sometimes there'll be stories, obviously, that help. I mean, it's always going to be part of my past. It's always going to be a part of something that built me into who I am. You know, the relationship book that comes out in 24, it is written in some ways from some of the lessons. I approached it from a military perspective, but I also approached it because I believe in the power of marriage. The Erica, the long-haired admiral, is amazing. I mean, you know, I am so blessed to have her. I am a firm believer that, you know, I don't even want to say behind every good man there's an amazing woman. I would say next to any great man there's an amazing woman, and she is that woman. And I think I believe in the power of marriage. It helped me. It doesn't mean I'm perfect, man. God knows I've made plenty of mistakes, but I had her along the path, and we worked very hard from the beginning on how to build that. There were many things we did in the beginning, sometimes not knowingly. We didn't write them down like these were the rules of our marriage, but they were there, and we focused on them, and we established them, and we reinforced them. And that's all the things that go into the book. So those things aren't necessarily SEAL things. Those things are more things that I hope people can help. Marriage is hard. We're at a 40% divorce rate in this country. People are going into marriage lately.
And in the SEAL teams, like, God, what is
we're
it,
90%.
like 90%?
90%. And the protector community has a very high divorce rate. And a lot of it has to do with we're very mission protector focused. And oftentimes we don't know how to include our spouse and our family in our careers. As a matter of fact, we think we're doing them a favor by separating them from it. No, I'm not going to tell you about what I'm doing. I'm going to protect you from it. But the reality is you're actually pushing them further away. You know, no, you don't need to come home and talk about the little kid you saw with his face blown out. But maybe you do, you know, maybe you do. I mean, there is a balance there, and depending on your spouse, you know, Erica's pretty damn strong. I mean, there are
you know
things
what, that's 100%. I mean, like, even I have this battle, you know, like you come to this mindset of like, I'm going to leave work at work and I'm going to come home and make it about that. But if you're not sharing that, like, and I'm 1,000% guilty of this. It's like, I don't want to tell you and just sit and talk about all the bad. Like, but are you talking about the good?
That's the thing. Like, you should be. You should share the good and the bad.
You got to do both. Like, but like, that's hard, especially as men. Like, I don't want her to be worried because me and one of my partners had a fallout at work, and, you know, like, it's going to be over with tomorrow. And you're like, well, sometimes women, like, that sticks with them longer. You know, like we can get in a fist fight and tomorrow we're still best friends. Like, yeah, all right, man. Yeah, I was kind of a dick. Yeah. You got the best of me on that one. And like, but we're good now, right? Like we're solid. But like, we don't take that mentality to those relationships. And like, I think that's where it's going to be really huge. Like people seeing that book.
Well, and I tell them no different in the military. Number one, you have to understand the mission. So in a marriage, your mission is marriage forever till death.
Yeah.
Like death. Like once you enter that bond, that's what it should be. Well, guess what? The next phase becomes training. So your wife has to train you and you have to train her. And there are people that are going to be so offended. Oh my God, Jason Redman said they got to train women. Yes. It's training in the aspect that how I communicate is different than how Erica communicates often.
Yeah.
How I feel is different than how she feels. I am less empathetic on certain things that she's much more empathetic on. But by training each other over time, like, hey, these things bother me, those things bother you. Understanding that is what builds a massively powerful relationship. That's no different in any team. You want to build great teams, you need to understand your people. You need to understand how they communicate. You need to train them, and they need to train you and how they function. If they're a great member of their team, you're going to appreciate that and come to understand that. Your spouse is the most important teammate you will ever have. And if you understand and appreciate that, there is massive power in it. You can become a wrecking force in the world to accomplish your goals, hopes, and dreams. And Eric and I have managed to do that. So, yeah, the 2.0 version of Jason Redman is I hope someday to be recognized as a speaker and someone who puts out amazing content, not just because they're like, well, I follow that guy because he was a Navy SEAL. I hope someday people are like, I follow that guy because he's an amazing human who puts out great content that makes us better.
I hope so too, man. And I think you're well on your way there. I mean, I think it's funny we're talking about this at the end. That's one of the questions I asked Erica. When Erica and I had some time, I asked her after hearing you guys. So for those who don't know, you haven't seen it yet, I'll put it out there when it comes out. But they started, the first 15 minutes of us doing our presentations was him and Erica doing their talk for the upcoming book that's going to come out in February 2025. So it was them doing that.
Invincible marriage.
And they were doing that in front of us. And it was very powerful. I don't think there was a dry eye in the room when Jason got towards the end and told his part. And Erica is the long-haired admiral is a very powerful woman. I'm telling y'all, like, she can hold her own ground. Like, she is every bit as much of a speaker as Jason is. And she has her story too.
We're going to need to cut that clip and we're going to send it to LHA because she keeps dragging her feet on speaking for me.
All right, that's fair. But I asked her, I said, how much do you think being the wife of a SEAL made you adapt and get you to this point? Because you know, now that you're a speaker and you're on the road and you guys talk so much about this and your schedule and maintaining the balance and everything else, I said, do you think you feel differently about this if you hadn't gone through that process of being a SEAL wife than if you just came in and it was Jason Redman, the speaker? Like, what would have had to have changed or what would have been there? Because I feel like she had to get used to running the household, running the family. You're gone. No questions asked. You know, you can't always say what you're doing, where you're at, what's going on. Like, you might get a call at 4 a.m. because it's the only time you have to call her. You know, that kind of stuff. That's not normal for everyday civilians.
It's not, but let's flip it on its head.
Yeah.
And that's what I want people to understand. And that's been one of the biggest things I'm trying to make that translation and relatability. Let's take the CEO of some Fortune, 500 company, so no, maybe he wasn't in combat, but who knows what trauma he and his wife went through over the years.
Yeah.
You know, God knows, you know, I meet plenty of people. I talk about one of the biggest life ambushes anybody can go through is the unexpected loss of a child. Do you know, and I bring that up in almost every presentation, almost every single presentation, someone will come up to me at the end and say, I lost a child. And they talk to me about how they dealt with it. Sometimes they tell me I've been stuck on the X. Sometimes they tell me the power of them driving through. But it's not a SEAL thing. What Eric and I have done is not unique. It doesn't need to be a military thing. Humans, it's hard to be a human. It's hard, man. It's hard to achieve. It's even harder to achieve high-level success. It takes grind and sacrifice and problems. And if you can do it and still hold together a family through all the years, that's tremendous. And we're not the only ones that have done that. There are so many out there that have done it. And that's, I want people to understand that the American dream is not dead, that marriage and a strong family and men being leaders next to an amazing, powerful leader wife is what can make the difference in this world. And
yeah. And to sum that up, like, I mean, that's what's funny is that's almost verbatim what she said back to me was like, I mean,
she's so lucky.
She's like, yeah, I mean, do I think it probably helped me a little bit? Yeah, but that's not what it's always, you know, like there's so much more to that. Like I can't unpack that and give you a short answer to that. Like we would be sitting here talking for hours. And I'm like, okay, I respect that. Like I was just curious, you know, like, and we had many other conversations. So
gonna have to get her in this chair.
Yeah, we need to. And I would love to have the LHA on the show. Like,
boom.
Next time you're here, Erica, we're going to talk about you getting off your ex speaking about the book and doing this. Like, we're going to do that on here. Like, would love to have that happen. Like, they were very helpful and influential in me getting over that. And I will share one other tidbit from that. Jill Bunny told us, and this was so helpful to me, because even after staying up all night rewriting my speech, doing slides, because I didn't have any slides, and everybody else was talking about their slides, and I was like, oh shit. And here you talked about, I went and saw Damon James or Damon Jones, whatever. Like, Damon John. And he added music, and I got music now, and I'm blowing this shit up.
But I tried to tell you guys, it took me years to get to that.
Right, but I saw all those light bulbs going off, and I was like,
2024 Speaker of the Year, Damon John.
Danny or somebody's gonna come out here and have some shit, and I've gotta level my game up. Like, I stayed up like most of the night, like reworking my shit, tried to like put something together. So, you know, seeing that, knowing that was all going together, Jill told us very early on, this was day one when we were grinding away in class. She was like, so what are y'all feeling right now? And pretty much all 12 people said nervous. And she's like, you know what? As an athlete and all the things she's done, she's like, that's not the word you need to tell yourself. It's excitement. Excitement and nervousness are the same exact feeling. Like they have the same response in your brain. So instead of telling yourself you're nervous, tell yourself you're excited and see what that does for you. No shit, it works. Like I literally, like I was number 6 in the lineup out of 12, and I had to go up after lunch. There was one other person in front of me, and I'm already hearing these stories. And granted, I've spent a whole day with these people. I kind of knew a little bit about them. Now I really knew about them because they're sharing powerful stories. And thank God you made Tim go at the end. That would have killed everybody. Like, that's the guy, Tim Brown, amazing dude.
Much love, Timmy.
Yeah, 9/11 story, and I mean, no one would have topped his Brazilian story. Not even Jason.
I know. I'm bummed about this.
Yeah. He killed it. So like being number 6, I was like, holy shit! Like, all right, I got to go up here and do this. Like, I'm going to do it. And I literally had to tell myself, this is excitement, not nervousness. Oh, do the breathing thing they talked about. Like, I had to pump myself up to do it. But, like, again, I can't say enough about it. I hope you guys all enjoyed this show and getting to know my friend Jay. If speaking or any of these things are something you would like to get better at, I highly recommend you go to his next Eagle Rise Summit. I'm going to be at the next one when he blows this out too, just because like I want to see level 2 as well. And I can't wait for that next revolution of that because I want to be a part of that.
We'd love to have you. One last thing I'm working on because I got to shout it out.
Yeah, get it.
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm always trying to grow and level up in this life. I had some guys that came to me and they said, hey man, we have this idea. A lot of companies out there are going very political. I feel like there's enough politics in politics. And they said, hey man, we have this idea to create this whiskey seltzer company and we want it to be built on the idea that America is a great place, that freedom and opportunity is what built this country into what it is. And it's called Patriot Seltzer. And it's not right or left. There are a lot of people that are starting to say, oh, well, Patriot, it's this right-wing word. And it's not, guys. Patriot just means you believe in your country. And America is a great place. I don't care what lies you've been told. We are a great place. I've been all over the world. And this idea behind this Patriot Seltzer is we want it to be America's seltzer. We want it to be, it has nothing to do with how you lean politically. It's about freedom, and we celebrate the individuals who have sacrificed for that freedom. Law enforcement, military, firefighters, our medical providers who do amazing things, and we have them on our cans. So we're launching Patriot Seltzer. Keep an eye out for it. It's coming. I hope that you guys will get behind it and you'll recognize that it represents America. We're calling it America's Seltzer, and we're getting that out there. He's going to
get some down here. I'll drink it on the show.
We will. We will get it. It's coming.
All right, man. So couple things. We end this show the same way with everybody. So, but first, I got a couple little gifts for you, man, just because I personally wanted to say thank you for coming on the show. And these are a couple things that I got for you. Feel free to open them up, take them home, whatever you want to do there.
Am I not allowed to take them home?
Yeah.
This is like, hey, I'm doing these things, but you're...
But I'm just saying, be careful. Like, you're going to want that box still because to get you through the airport, you're definitely going to need that box saying that it doesn't have fuel in it.
I got to be smarter. I got to be smarter than the box here. Oh, there we go.
So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on the show,
man. Oh, that's awesome, man. This is the old school.
Old school with the torch lighter. It does not have fuel in it so that you can get it back home with you safely. With the Navy
logo on it. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, wanted to add to your cigar journey so when you do have that rare occasion out back. And then that's a custom art piece there for you that I thought... After seeing your office, I was like,
this is awesome.
He needs an American flag cutter, man. Like, those are custom artwork there, so.
And I tell you what, if the world goes to shit, I'm going to be cutting people's fingers off with this.
Don't tell TSA that, bro. They stole mine even under the plane. They're assholes. Well,
I'm just kidding. I would never do that. I am a lover. So, dude, these are awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, I hope you enjoy them, man. I hope they bring you a lot of relaxation and enjoyment in your cigar journey.
Long-haired Admiral is going to give me so much shit. I can't believe you said that.
That's all right. We've said a lot of things.
Sorry, babe. I am a... be nice to everyone you meet and have a plan to kill them.
There we go. All right. So on that note, we end every show with two things. So it's Common Sense the Podcast. If you could leave your kids with one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Overcome. I mean, I think I've told you guys that plenty of times. This world is hard. It is not fair. You will do everything right, and it will still go wrong. And your ability to get up and keep driving, finish. No matter what you start, you finish it, and then you reevaluate. Quitting is done in the moment. Quitting is an emotional response to pain and discomfort. driving through is what builds an overcome mindset. That's what builds resilience. So I've always told our kids, we've always told them that anything you start, you have to finish. Once you get to the end, then you can decide, is it time to stop? Usually when you get to the other side, you realize, it wasn't that bad. Or you decide, you know what, I'm glad I did that, but I'm going to move in a different direction. So it is the motto I've lived my life by. It is the motto that I have taught my kids. It is the motto that I continue to live my own life by.
Fuck yeah, brother. All right, last one. And then I have no idea where you're going to go with this one, and I can't wait. But we like to do a little segment called Your 2 Cents. This can be something I didn't ask you, something that's been weighing on you, something you just want to say, something you want to put out there, one of your famous great jokes. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You get to give our guest, Jason Redman's 2 cents.
So my biggest pet peeve, it's for all the dudes out there. I travel all the time. Everywhere I go, when I go into the bathrooms, there's piss all over the floor in front of the urinals. Like, bro, stand closer to the urinal. It ain't that long, all right? I'm tired of standing in piss every time I go to take a leak. I got beautiful boots that are expensive. I have to straddle the urinal just so I can take a leak. Like, it ain't that long. Stand closer and piss in the urinal.
Yeah, if you can't see your dicky do, go sit down.
I will say that is the very first of its kind.
Absolutely.
Comment we've ever had. And that's probably the most common sense one we've actually had.
And I have one question to that. How many times, because this happened to me in Vegas, how many times have you been at the fucking urinal and somebody's come up and tried to shake your hand?
It has actually happened multiple times, which is just weird. Like, bro,
another weird. Don't do this.
Done.
Can we wash our hands?
I wash my hands, and then I'll be glad to say hello.
That happened to me standing next to Dana White, and I just laughed because some dude literally came up, urinal in between us, and was talking him up, and I'm like, he's taking a fucking piss.
I met Kim Coates. Played Tig in Sons of Anarchy. Great actor. Kim Coates, if you hear this, much love to you. But we were at a USO gala. I went into the bathroom. I'm taking a leak, and I look over and standing next to me, and I'm like, and Sons of Anarchy was big back then. This when it was going on. And Erica loved Kim Coates. So I'm like, oh my God, you're Kim Coates. And I was like, hang on. Well, I'm going to finish. I don't want to make this weird. So I waited till we were done. We washed our hands. And then I grabbed him and I said, you got to come meet my wife. And so he came with me, met Erica. We took a picture, the three of us together. It's me, Erica, Kim Coates. Erica crops the picture and posts on Facebook of only her and Kim Coates. True story. So I met him at the urinal, but I didn't make it weird.
And you got sold out.
And I totally got sold out. Yeah. So,
brother, I want to thank you for coming and doing this with me, man. All the love to you, man.
Thank you. This was awesome, man.
Yeah.
What a fun time.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I think I need cigars and a little bit of whiskey for every podcast I do.
Right? It makes it so much better.
It does. It was amazing.
I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Please leave us some comments, likes, shares, reviews. We love all that. And
if you don't know me, please come follow me. Jason Redman WW is my hashtag on all my socials. Big on Instagram. But we're also growing our YouTube channel. Try to put out great content. We got some new stuff coming on YouTube, so check that out too.
Yeah, and check out the Eagle Rise Summit. He has an amazing facility in Virginia. I promise you, it's worth every penny. Go check it out. I mean, this facility is huge. Half the ones I go to, it feels like you're in somebody's apartment. This is a huge ass facility in a beautiful setting, right on the Chesapeake Bay. He might let you smoke a cigar on the back patio with him overlooking the bay. I mean, Absolutely. It's a beautiful facility. So go check it out. Y'all check out his books, Trident, Overcome, Get Off Your Ex.
Invincible Marriage is coming.
It's coming. Peace.